For those of you who don't have met me yesterday, my name is Nicholas Shamas. I'm the 122nd president of the MIT Alumni Association. Today, we are fortunate to have our fellow alum and MIT Provost, Martin Schmidt, with us this morning. He was appointed Provost in 2014, and as you might know, the Provost shares responsibility with the President, the Chancellor, and the academic deans for the supervision of the educational and research programs of MIT. He is the Chief Academic Officer of the Institute with responsibility for budgeting and planning of these programs. He works closely with the Executive Vice President, Israel Ruiz, to share in the responsibility for coordinating the budgeting and capital planning of the Institute. He is a member of the faculty since 1988. He was recently appointed as the Ray and Maria Stata Professor of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science. His teaching and research is in the areas of micro and nanofabrication of sensors, actuators, and electronic devices, microelectromechanical systems, designs of micromechanical sensors and actuators, and micro-nanofabrication technology. He is the co-author of more than 80 journal publications and 120 peer-reviewed conference proceedings. He is also an inventor on more than 30 issued US patents. More than 25 students have completed their PhD degrees under his supervision. He is a recipient of the National Science Foundation Presidential Young Investigator Award and has an honorary doctorate from the Technical University of Denmark. He was elected as a fellow of the IEEE in 2004 for contributions to design and fabrication of microelectromechanical systems. In addition to his academic pursuits, he is active in consulting with industry in the commercialization of technology. His research group has transferred a number of new technologies to industry, and he has co-founded or has been the co-inventor of the core technology of 6 startup companies. Professor Schmidt received his BS degree from the Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in 1981, and his SM and PhD degrees from MIT in 1983 and 88, respectively. Marty will share present and update on the slate of MIT, share future plans for the Institute, and discuss opportunities in higher education. Please join me in welcoming Martin Schmidt to the podium.
Thanks for that really kind introduction. Let me get this going here. God, they make these screens small. Okay. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. If you were here 2 years ago, you know my family obsesses about dress code. And I thought about wearing a suit, and then I went online, and the thing says business casual, but wear your MIT attire. So there you have it. If you were expecting a tie, I apologize. So I thought a fair bit over the week about what I wanted to share with you, and I'll just start by saying it's been a remarkable year. I mean, just so much has happened on campus, so many good things, so many challenges that I think the Institute has survived and flourished under. So it's basically impossible for me to kind of give you the encapsulation of what's transpired. So without any particular editorial bias, I just decided to pick out a few things that I thought would be interesting to share with you, at least from my perspective. And it's, in some respects, it's a story told from the MIT News Office. So in order to just give you things to look at rather than me, I grabbed some screenshots from the MIT News site just to kind of punctuate some of the discussion. So what do I want to talk about? Well, here's what I'm going to talk to you about. Basically, we had a lot of fun this year. So I want to say something about that. We talk a lot about the importance of basic research And I think we had some important accomplishments there, and I want to just feature one. This was a very important year at MIT with respect to supporting our students and engaging our students in important issues, and I want to share some anecdotes about what happened this year in that regard. We focus a lot on innovation, and there's some really exciting things that have happened, and I just want to give you a flavor of what's happening on the innovation dimension. And I want to end with what is an extraordinarily ambitious undertaking on our part, I believe, which is our efforts to basically further enhance, activate, and really expand Kendall Square. And that's where I'll stop, and then I'll make sure I have plenty of time for questions at the end. So the fun part, we celebrated a campaign launch. It was really exciting. But also, I think perhaps more interesting on campus was we celebrated 100 years in Cambridge. So the year was punctuated with a sequence of events basically marking the 100th anniversary of MIT moving from Copley Square to Cambridge. I had the privilege, along with Chancellor Barnhart and a number of other people, of being the judges for the crossing of the Charles. So we had both land and sea crossings. I think there were about 20 or 30 entrants. Most of them floated across successfully, not all. But it was really remarkable. And the parade, let me just say, there was an article in the Boston Globe the day after the parade, and I'm trying to remember exactly how they said about it, but it wasn't the Macy's Day Parade. It was very MIT, let's just say that. Quite remarkable. I think my son was blown away when a grocery cart went by, motorized with an MIT student in it. Awesome. We ended that day, after people dried off and we celebrated that, we ended that day with just a remarkable celebration in Killian Court. This is one image. If you have a chance, some of the websites have pictures of this, but holy cow, what a party. I mean, Killian Court was full. And I think what was remarkable about it is lots of friends came out. The students really engaged. I mean, this was, Roz, I don't know, I think it was like the weekend before reading week for finals. So these guys were really crunched. And I think they weren't really paying attention to the fact that we were going to have a party, and they couldn't believe that the administration was going to have a really good party. But the word got out, I think literally on social media, and so by sort of 20 minutes into this thing, you know, all the undergraduates started flooding into Killian Court. And one of my freshman advisees, so after this, then there were a bunch of dance parties all over campus. President Reif, it's reported, danced in multiple tents that evening. It's reported that according to one of my freshmen, the students were sort of flabbergasted that the administration could throw a better party than the students. So we just had a lot of fun, and it's hard for me to express how exciting that was. Basic research. What can you say? The discovery of gravitational waves. This story is remarkable. You know, what Ray Weiss went through to achieve this, it was just a remarkable story of the importance of basic research. And it was a proud day for MIT, for Caltech, and I think for science. And at a moment when we're announcing the campaign and talking about the importance of basic science, you couldn't have better timing. My own anecdote was the day this was announced, which looks like it was February 11th. I was in New York City for a dinner that evening with the Endowment Management Board, and I took an Uber from my hotel to the meeting, and I had a particularly talkative Uber driver. And we started talking about, turned out that he was a Giants fan. Better than Jets, but so it goes. So we talked a little bit about that, and then I was just really happy, and I said, well, you know, today's a great day for science. Just sort of threw that out there to your Uber driver. And he goes, oh, is that thing about Einstein and gravity? from an Uber driver, right? And I said, as a matter of fact, it is. He said, well, what's up with that? And so we talked, and he says, yeah, I was listening to NPR, driving somebody around, and they did a story on it, but I didn't get the whole story because my fare wanted me to switch to ESPN radio. But at least Uber drivers appreciate the importance of basic science and the discovery of gravitational waves. So, you saw it. If you were following the news, it really captured people's attention. It captured people's imagination. We were really delighted that Ray Weiss won the Kavli Prize in astrophysics. The celebration was held this summer in Oslo, I think. And I'll just say that we're going to be paying very attention in October to other possible prizes for Ray. Enough said, right? Let's talk about students. So why do I want to talk to you about this? There's a lot of discussion about unrest on campus. And there's a lot of op-eds being written about, are the administration sort of capitulating to student demands? There's just the narrative about what's happening on college campuses around unrest on certain social issues really is playing into a sense that, it's crazy, campuses are going crazy, and what the heck is going on with the administration? And I wanted to address that in the context of some of the things that happened at MIT this year. And in particular, I just want to start by saying that I think that it's different at MIT. And maybe that's not a surprise, but we faced, two challenges, at least this year, related to the fossil-free movement and related to the concern of our black students with respect to the things that were happening in the nation. And I just want to talk a little bit about that and give you a sense of what played out on our campus and why I believe you should be proud of our students. So this is the tech. Actually, this was from May of 2014, but the students started getting involved with the fossil-free movement and asking the administration to divest the endowment of fossil fuel companies. President, and then the faculty started weighing in. So this is a faculty newsletter article talking about compelling faculty to sign a petition to encourage the Institute to divest its endowment of fossil fuels. When the students met with President Reif, basically his statement to the students was, that's not good enough for me. I think there's an MIT solution to this challenge. And so what happened was, with the leadership of Maria Zuber, our Vice President of Research, who just spent an inordinate amount of time with the students on this issue and really led us, it helps to have someone who's an expert in earth and planetary sciences leading this discussion. We put together what we call the climate change conversation. It was basically a year-long discussion on campus about what are we thinking about this issue and what should be the Institute's response to it. MIT hosted a debate on the pros and cons of fossil fuel divestment. In this year, I think we're the only institution that had an administration-sponsored discussion about this topic. It was a good, robust debate, and there were a whole series of forums to talk about what should MIT do. A report was delivered to the administration. We looked at it carefully, we spent a lot of time on it, and we announced a plan for action on climate change. The plan, I couldn't do justice to it, but basically it's talking about really trying to ratchet up our work on low carbon energy research and things like that. So that was the essence. But also in the report, we declared that we were not prepared to divest the endowment of fossil fuel companies. Now, turns out we don't really have much in that regard, but we didn't feel as though using divestment as a tool in this case was appropriate. That was not satisfactory to the students, and this was a Wednesday, I think, that we issued the report, and on Thursday morning, we had a nice crowd in front of the president and the provost's office. So the students basically camped out in front of our offices. This is a picture, I think it's close to day one. this was an incredibly interesting thing. So I'll just tell you a story. So Kirk Kohlenbrenner, many of you know Kirk, he's our vice president. Kirk has a habit of bringing in baked goods every Thursday morning for the office. So this Thursday morning, Kirk brought scones, but the students were here. So Kirk served scones to the students. They very much appreciated it. Friday morning, Maria brought donuts, Maria Zuber. The next week, the students upped their game, and they brought pastries from Flour, which is a very nice bakery on Mass Ave, and delivered it to the staff and the president and the provost's office. This is how MIT students protest. But quite seriously, I mean, they were very dedicated, very committed, and we engaged in a long conversation with them that Maria led. The sit-in lasted. This is day 50. All told, the students sat outside our office for 116 days. Throughout this time, there was an ongoing dialogue between Maria and the students, and as a result of that dialogue, it led to some additional agreements. So we spent a lot of time with them, and I think Maria brokered some very constructive compromises with the students about how to address their concerns. We're still not prepared to divest or agree to a divestment plan, but there were a bunch of other things we added that were important to the students, which we felt also made sense, and so that was the result. So after 116 days, in early March, the students packed up just in time to get ready to graduate. And on graduation day, they came back, and it was really cool. We give them a big hug, so what am I saying? I'm just saying that I think that it was a respectful discussion. I think it led to some very positive outcomes. We didn't agree on everything, but I think we're all pretty proud of our students. Around the same time, on college campuses, students being concerned about what was occurring around the country began making, at most campuses, demands of the administration. When this happened, it happened all very rapidly, and Raphael was on the road. He flew back from somewhere, I forget where it was, on a weekend, and he sent an email to the student leaders, the black student leaders of both the Black Student Union and the Graduate Student Association, and asked to meet with them in their lounge in Walker Memorial. And I think that was that led to a dialogue. And what ended up happening was after meeting with them, basically President Reif asked the students, well, what would you recommend? What would you like us to do? And the students spent a couple of weeks thinking about that. They delivered a set of recommendations to us. This was back in December. We actually invited them to the Academic Council, which is the group that meets every Tuesday morning. It's the senior leadership of the Institute. And as a result of that, we stood up a group, and basically we're working on their recommendations in concert with them. So all this transpired in, I think, a really constructive way, very much a strong partnership between the students and the administration. And somewhere in the middle of that, the students produced this video with the help of the news office, and I think it's just it's terrific. So I want to share it with you, if I can. I'm PowerPoint engineering challenged, so let me just.
When I think of diversity and inclusion. The two go hand in hand together. Diversity to me is that rich intersection of different ideas, perspectives, and backgrounds coming together. And inclusion allows that intersection to go forth so that creativity and innovation moves forward.
I think diversity is one of those things that you don't really have to consciously address all the time, but it will manifest itself unconsciously. So for me, as a black kid growing up in upstate New York, my race was definitely a big key difference between me and my peers. And just being able to talk about these kind of key differences in our identities and experiences was one of the big ways that I saw diversity and the aims of really being inclusive towards everyone being seen and being implemented.
Diversity also means social mobility. Now I'm an MIT student here in Cambridge, Massachusetts, but I'm also the child of immigrant parents Now, my parents are actually refugees. They met in a refugee camp in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. And they remind me all the time, don't let any opportunity go to waste.
So nationally, there's been a lot of focus lately on issues of diversity and inclusion on college campuses. It was important for us to kind of identify how MIT was going to respond to these issues. Understanding that MIT is not really a competitive, but more of a collaborative institution meant that the way that we were going to approach this problem was from multiple angles and from multiple levels. So that's MIT students, faculty, staff, and administrators coming together to put forth kind of this list of recommendations and understand that the way that we're going to make this community change is, among its members and all of its members.
All of us have different thoughts and ideas. It doesn't matter if we grew up on different sides of the world or if we grew up in the same neighborhood. We're all different. We're all unique. We're all diverse. And an inclusive environment allows all of us to come together, to collaborate, to create, to innovate, and ultimately change MIT and the world.
So as you might expect, we did it differently at MIT, and I think we're proud of that. There were other challenges. I don't know if there's any alumni from Senior House here, but this summer, after a lot of careful thought and discussion, in June, basically, we announced that we needed to really address concerns we had about the climate in Senior House. Some of it stemmed from what we saw was really significantly lower graduation rates out of Senior House. And so under the leadership of Cindy Barnhart, we basically announced that we wanted to work closely with the students in Senior House to try and figure out how do we turn this around, how do we ensure greater academic success of the students living in Senior House. That happened just this summer, and it created a lot of disruption, a lot of frustration on the part of Senior House students and alumni of Senior House. Cindy has done a remarkable job dealing with this, and I think we're on a strong trajectory. They created something that Cindy's calling the turnaround team. The turnaround team is comprised of 4 committees that are looking at various aspects of how do we improve the situation in Senior House. Those committees have collectively, the 4 committees have 40 people on them. 22 of the people on that committee are students currently living in Senior House. So I think, again, really trying to take a very inclusive approach to addressing student concerns, which is the theme I wanted to convey to you in these 3 examples, which is basically we're not immune to some of the challenges, but I think the approach we're taking is having some success, and I think Cindy's very optimistic that we're going to end up in a good place with Senior House as well. So that's with students. Let me touch a little bit on innovation. So I'll just preface this by saying everybody talks about innovation. Goodness sakes, I think I saw a commercial recently about Coca-Cola and how they're innovating. And I have no reason to believe that they aren't, but what does that word mean? And I think what it means to MIT is the following. And I'll share it in the context of the way I think about this from my personal experiences with research, which is that the ways in which ideas leave campus are radically changing today compared to 30 or 40 years ago. 34 years ago, when I was doing research in my lab, technology transfer happened when the graduate student graduated and went to work at IBM Research, or went to work at General Motors in Warren, Michigan, or went to work somewhere along the way. Or one of those large research laboratories took the ideas out of our laboratory and developed them further and then brought them into products. Today, the predominant pathway of translation of ideas out of the campus is through new venture creation. And I say it that way because it's not just about for-profit startups, but it's also about nonprofits that might be established in India or Africa to advance ideas. But for a variety of reasons, and I'd be happy to elaborate on them in the Q&A, this is what's happening. It's never been easier if a student or a faculty member has an idea, it's never been easier to translate that idea outward than through a new venture. And And it's happening. You know, I can quote all kinds of numbers, but if you look at, for example, the survey of seniors when they graduate, in 2006, less than 1% of the graduating seniors said they were going to go work in a startup. In 2014, 20% of the graduating seniors said they were going directly into a startup. Less than 1% to 20% in a decade. And that is not a bubble. And so we need to prepare our students, our faculty, for how do they move in that world, and also we need to get our systems in order to facilitate that. And what's interesting to me about this is that what I see happening is students and faculty come to MIT with a passion for something they want to do. And because of this, they can pursue that passion straight out of school. And that's pretty exciting, and I'll show you an example of that. So what I want to do is basically, because I'm a little short on time, I'm going to skip over a few things. I know you heard from Martin Culpepper, I think last year, about what we're doing in makerspaces, but let me just say, let me jump to the punchline on this one. One of the things we've done is we've created this mobile app which allows you to go. So part of this is, how do you, if you have an idea, how do you implement it? And well, MIT has tons of great spaces, but how do you go and find them? Well, there's now an app for that. Which is basically, you can pull up an app, and this will basically tell you where every 3D printer is on campus, when it's available, and how you get access to it, or every lathe, or every laser cutter, or every water jet cutter. So we did that. But the other thing we did is I asked Martin Culpepper, I said, could you get every freshman trained in how to use the makerspaces on campus? And Martin's amazing, he said yes. And what we did, and we announced this at Campus Preview Weekend, this year, every freshman that has come to MIT is being offered 100 maker bucks. You say, what's 100 maker bucks? Well, it's $100 to spend in any shop that engages with this program on campus. And I said to Martin, I said, well, how do the students get their heads around what they can make with 100 bucks? He said, that. So Martin went into one of the shops and he made what he could for $100. He's got a couple of different tables. Anyway, but the challenge is so that's good, we gave them $100, but now they have to get trained. So Martin comes back to me and says, okay, that'll work, but now I've got to train 1,200 students. Yikes. So we built a facility over the summer. Martin got undergraduates to agree as volunteers to run this, and Martin believes that he can train 600 freshmen by Thanksgiving. In using, and we've got 10 shops on campus that have signed up for this. So after they get through the training, $100 get deposited in their Mobius Maker app, and they can go to 10 shops on campus and make stuff. I think that's going to be pretty transformative. So the other thing we do is we have a program at MIT in the Trust Center that used to be called the Global Founders Skills Accelerator. It doesn't really roll off the tongue, GFSA. So they renamed it Delta V. But this is a kind of an accelerator program. This is a program where the students, after they've moved through their journey on MIT of talking to our venture mentoring service, taking some entrepreneurship classes, learning how to use the makerspace and so on, this is a summer experience where for 10 weeks they're basically put in a pressure cooker and over the summer in the Trust Center, and they have an idea for a company they want to start and an idea they want to advance, and the Trust Center basically helps them, in Bill Ouellette's words, who runs the program, helps them achieve escape velocity. At the end of that session in early September, we have Demo Day, and so Demo Day was in Kresge Hall, or Kresge Auditorium 2 weeks ago, I think it was Friday 2 weeks ago. First of all, Kresge was full. I mean, the administration can't hold anything that fills Kresge. Demo Day filled Kresge. 14 companies pitched. You can go to this website. If you Google the Martin Trust Center for Entrepreneurship, the videos that the students presented are all online. There's 2 videos I want to show you. The first is the Governor Baker, came to give a welcome at Demo Day. And it's cool what he said. So let's watch. Again, PowerPoint engineering.
To be here today. And I also wanted to say how much I appreciate MIT. Okay? I'm a Harvard undergrad. Harvard's a cool place, no doubt about it. But I've spent most of my professional career in the public and private sector here in Massachusetts. And I've had a chance to get to know a lot about what makes this state and what makes this economy tick. And we would be a really different place if it wasn't for MIT. The amount of wizardry that comes out of this place is absolutely staggering. And the other thing I love about MIT, and especially a lot of the folks who come out of MIT, is they don't blow their own horn. They just do the work, and they just succeed, and they just try, and they succeed, and they try, and they succeed. And the contributions that MIT as an institution and the people who come out of MIT make, not just to the Commonwealth of Mass, but to the country and to the world overall, is extraordinary. And I really consider it to be one of the true treasures of Massachusetts. And I actually have a seat, believe it or not, as governor on the board of directors. I just found that out. For some reason, no one at MIT told me that after I got elected. So I can't make the next board meeting, but gosh darn it, I'm going to be at the following one and every one after that, and I'm going to vote against everything the president wants to do. Because I want to prove how hard.
All right, I haven't had the time to tell Raphael what the governor said. So keep it quiet until I get to see him. It's great remarks. I mean, it was a real uplift. So I'm running late on time. I wanted to show you one of the videos of the pitches, but I think in the interest of time, I'm going to skip it. But I really encourage you to go look at the website. They're inspirational. And the one I was going to show you is a company called .learn. Go look at it. .learn is a startup that went through the accelerator program. The grad student that pitches the company in the demo day is a student who did his undergraduate in Africa. And as a result of using our open courseware as platform, he got enough credentialing through OCW that he was able, when graduating from his university in Africa, to get to MIT for graduate school. And basically, .learn is his expression of interest in figuring out how does he bring online learning back to Africa and address what is the fundamental challenge he faced, which is the cost of streaming videos in Africa is prohibitive. And so .learn is about compression algorithms to deliver this kind of online learning experience in where he grew up. It's a compelling story, and I think it's an example of our students are coming with passions, and the exciting thing is we can enable that passion out of the gate. Okay, Kendall Square. So this has a bunch of stuff, but I'll go quick. So this, I've been working on this since 2008. But we finally got approval a couple of years ago to basically increase the zoning capacity in Kendall Square. And the way we like to say it is we're trying to convert 7 surface parking lots into something more exciting. And that something more exciting is a much more vibrant ecosystem in Kendall Square. And what we're trying to deal with is the person that comes out of the Kendall Square T station and stops you and says, "Where's MIT?" We don't like that. We want it to be eminently clear that when you come out of the Kendall Square T stop, you're at MIT. So I'm just going to show you some renderings. These are basically renderings that we shared with the planning board. We got another approval from the planning board this spring. And if you walk by Kendall Square now, there's a fence up. So we're going to start digging a hole in the ground for a massive underground parking garage that is going to be the substructure for 7 buildings that are going to come out of the ground. This is the outline of the zoning area. The yellow are the surface parking lots that we think we can do something better with. You're familiar with many of them. This is basically the 6 of the 7 buildings that we're building. Building 1 is a residential tower that'll be a public, basically available to the public as well as obviously MIT people. Building 2 and 3 are buildings that are mixes of lab and office space. Our intention is to basically, because we don't need 1.6 million square feet of space today, although most department heads would disagree with that statement. But I'm the provost and everybody knows my job is to say no. The intention is really to lease those spaces commercially. Some of you may know that Kendall Square has some of the highest real estate prices in the Northeast. This is a very desirable location, and we want to create more capacity, allow more of the exciting organizations to come to MIT, come next to MIT. Building 4 is going to be a 450 bed, I think, graduate residence tower. So this will basically replace Eastgate. So if you're paying attention, you'll notice 2 is where Eastgate is. So the intention is to build 450 beds. It's twice the number of beds that are in Eastgate. And then once that's completed, we can demo Eastgate and replace it with that building. And on the base of Building 4 will be an innovation center, a child care facility. This is going to be amazing. Building 5 is an office complex. The ground floor of Building 5 will be the first 3 floors of Building 4 will be the MIT Museum. So MIT Museum is moving from Central Square to Kendall Square. And what that does is between 4 and 5 where the T is, that's now the new gateway to MIT. You're going to walk through there. You're going to have the MIT Museum on one side. You're going to have an innovation and entrepreneurship center on the other, all very prominently MIT. The admissions office will move to the base of Building 4. All the tours will start there. All the welcomes to MIT will start at the base of Building 4. I think it's going to be tremendously exciting. We have, we got architects doing all kinds of cool designs. Just some renderings. This is the residence that's happening. We call it Soma and Noma, north of Maine, south of Maine. This is north of Maine. This is the high-rise apartment complex or condo. I don't know what it's going to be, but it sits behind 1 Broadway where the Cambridge Innovation Center sits. These are some. I've learned that architects are now enamored of cantilevers, so these are you'll see. But quite seriously, what I've learned, and I'm not an architect, but is that it kind of allows you to create a feeling on the ground that isn't these imposing massive towers. So you can kind of, there's a lot of recent buildings that are built this way. So this is the second building that will be present, and some of these renderings are what you might see when you're coming across the Longfellow Bridge and entering Kendall Square. We needed to be honest and say that it might snow, and so this is what it looks like there. This is one. It's changing a little bit, but this is a rendering of the tower. One of the things you'll notice is the building that the MIT Press is still there. So Cambridge considers that building and the 2 buildings adjacent to it historic. So this is being built. Okay, this is being built in that way, and so on. So we're, the renderings, they kind of like, okay, that looks cool, trees, good. There'll be a nice open space. So, but the question is, how do you communicate this? And so they made a video. I want to share this with you. So what it's an animation of what it would be like if you were to walk through here as soon as it's all built. So I'll end with that. Okay. Now I should say we showed this to the Cambridge Planning Board. And that was the first time I saw it. The animation, I think, is pretty good. It might be a little choppy with my laptop, but I don't know who did the soundtrack. So I take no ownership of that. And you can decide whether or not you like it, and then we'll take questions, except about the sound. much time do we have for questions? 3 minutes? Oh. I'm sorry. I will be at the reception and awards tonight, so and I'll make sure I arrive on time. So,
good morning.
Hey.
Thank you so much. We had our activities yesterday in the Student Center, and I'm an alumni, and I was very disappointed at the condition of the Student Center. I thought it needs to be painted. I thought you need new tiles. I don't think you need to rebuild it, but it just needs a little bit more loving care.
I couldn't agree with you more. So what I can say about that is the following, and you may have heard, I say this at every gathering because I'm very, whatever. 3 or 4 years ago, MIT was spending $20 million a year fixing the campus, $20 million a year. Now, what that translated to is when you were a faculty member and you walked into an otherwise crappy building, you might happen to walk into an elevator that looked brand new. So we were spending $20 million a year fixing elevators, fixing roofs, doing things like that, but it was not enough. We're now spending $200 million a year. We've gone from $20 million a year to $200 million a year that we're spending fixing the campus. Haven't gotten the student center yet. But this place feels like a construction zone because it is. And we basically have a decade plan to spend $200 million a year. So basically it's a $2 billion plan to get at that. That's the good news. The bad news is that we only have a billion of that so far. So we need another billion. Mail your checks. Could we get the mic?
Can you tell us what were the results of the Black Student Union concerns and what some of the highlights of what the administration is doing?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. Thanks so much. So the students were interested in several things. One is they wanted us to publish data. So they wanted more transparency around the data in terms of how the Institute was doing in diversity in multiple dimensions, in terms of faculty hiring, in terms of student admissions and the like. So we're working on a dashboard that would allow them to see that and see it easily. A lot of that data exists, but it's a little difficult to extract. They wanted the departments to have statements addressing their strategy and their view on diversity. So just department statements. They wanted us to develop programs for unconscious bias training. Those are at least 3 of the ones that I can think of. There are probably a few more. They were all very sensible recommendations, and they're all ones which we're working to implement. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like you to comment on Newhouse and what the plans are with the potential demolition of Newhouse and the impact on the living groups that are there.
Yeah. So Cindy's spending a lot of time with that, and so for those of you that are not aware, it's Newhouse. So one of the things when you go from 20 to 200 million fixing buildings, the first thing you do is you go around and figure out where do I need to go first. One of the things we did is we went to Bexley and we realized, holy cow, it's about to collapse. And so with Bexley, we had to basically cross our fingers from between April and May, and then empty the building and unfortunately demolish it. What happened with Newhouse is basically we had a steam pipe burst unexpectedly, and when we got into the walls, we realized that the steam pipes were hideously corroded. We've made the place safe, but which is to say that a steam pipe might burst this year, but it won't do harm to people living in Newhouse. So we have to get people out of it by the end of the year in order to get at that. Then we're faced with the solution of do we tear it down and build something new or do we repair it? We're assessing those options. In the meantime, Cindy's working with the occupants of Newhouse today, as well as the DormCom, to come up with a plan for where everybody can move to. So it's a TBD, but I think from my perspective, the good news is that the students are deeply engaged in this process, and I think Cindy's demonstrated tremendous capacity to engage the students in a positive way, and I think we're going to see that there. One more question. That's what the sign says. I'm happy to answer more if you.
All of the developments that you've been talking about around Kendall Square are really exciting, but they also create a challenge. I commute into Boston from Marlboro, and sometimes I take a commuter bus, and sometimes I drive to Alewife to take the Red Line to the financial district. So one of the things I've noticed is that the Alewife garage tends to fill up by about 9, maybe 9:30 in the morning. And while it's certainly an improvement to replace all the Red Line cars, there's about 80 Red Line cars that I think are going to be replaced with better braking systems to increase throughput potentially by about 50%. It seems like ultimately there's a choke point at Alewife that's going to, when you get to the garage and if it's full, there's nowhere to go. And it just seems that with MIT and Harvard being such prominent employers and attracting so much spin-off activity, that there really has to be another look taken at the future of the Alewife garage and incorporate that into your short-term or near-term planning. Because ironically, about a month ago, I was taking the elevator up to the 4th floor, and there are 2 buttons on the garage. Most people think of the top floor as the 5th floor, which it is, but there's a button for 6 and a button for 7. And apparently in 1982, when the state was going through Proposition 2.5, there was a decision to cut back the scale of the garage. So now we're starting to feel the effects of that particular choke point. So I guess I'm just trying to plant the seed with you. And given that Stephanie Pollack, who's the CEO and Secretary of Transportation in the state and is an alum of both MIT and Harvard, and she's getting my email tomorrow with the suggestion, so you're hearing a sneak preview. I just wanted to plant the seed, and I'm hoping that, and I'd like to be part of the solution because I have some ideas for what can be done.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, I'm not as familiar with the Alewife station, obviously, as you are, but the transportation issue is probably the biggest concern we have. And the governor comes and says great things. When we see him, when he comes here, we talk to him about the Red Line. We need the governor, we need the Cambridge and Boston to come together to really make a commitment to improve the transportation infrastructure in all of Greater Boston, but particularly this, because it is a big challenge. And so we're very focused on it. There's a Kendall Square Association. The president of the Kendall Square Association is Sarah Gallup, our Director of Community Relations. And we're trying to also get the Kendall Square Association and all the companies in Kendall Square to join forces to be that voice to press this forward. So, but you're absolutely right. I know I'm out of time. I apologize for going longer and not giving you enough time for questions. I will be back tonight, and I look forward to engaging with you. You should think of me as the warm-up band, because what you're about to hear is really remarkable. Roz Picard will do a phenomenal job. I know Nicholas will introduce her, but it's going to be a lot better than this. So if you were...